I know that the big money for Ford remains in the internal combustion engines, the profit center for the enterprise. That said, I don't know how you can cut prices like Ford just did and then make it up in volume.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? I'm not going to bash EVs, but I'm going to go after the Ford F-150. And
do you expect the F-150 Lightning to actually take market share away from a Cybertruck or vice versa? Because to me, when you actually look at the trucks, they seem so different that maybe they would attract very different buyers.
Yes, the three things I'm watching here, and analysts, of course, is first off, gross margin trough, the Cybertruck, and also expansion of the factories.
All that and more, so let's get to it. A rather mild day when you talk about Tesla, only up 1%, but on that journey to 1%, you could see that it was all over the place, and for the most part, kind of down. All eyes will be on tomorrow's Q2 earnings call, more accurately when they release the report shortly after the closing bell. Now tomorrow will be Throwback Thursday as scheduled, but Friday will be a special Q2 earnings report. For now, the options market is absolutely crazy leading up into earnings. 100% implied volatility. Only the steeliest of eyed gamblers should be in the options market when you're talking about Tesla right now. Me personally, I prefer to look into the future, setting calls for months in advance, like the call you see on the screen. Purchase this call on June 21st. It doesn't expire until the middle of September. You get better implied volatility when you reach out further into the future. Tesla currently sitting at $292, while this particular contract has a break-even price of $293. There is a little bit of angst here because I have the opportunity to sell this at a 50% gain with an expiration date of September 15th. Even if this earnings call has a bad gross automotive margin number attached to it, I believe there's enough runway, about 6 weeks or so, for Tesla to leap over that possible hurdle. But I'm on record saying that the gross automotive margin will be at 19.5%.
You don't cut prices if you sell something that lots of people want. You raise them. But what if the story changes? What if the market's getting competitive and competitors are nipping at your heels, causing potential customers to rethink their orders? Then you can cut price to where you can still sell the merchandise without alienating prospective buyers. There's the unemotional way to view Ford F-150 Lightning's price cuts that we heard about today, as much as 17% for certain models. Current orders will be re-invoiced. Everyone's freaking out about this, right? That was all day you heard about it, which is why the stock sold off nearly 6% today alone. I don't blame anyone for being emotional about that. We know there's a wait list for those who want these electric pickup trucks. I spent a lot of time with Ford CEO Jim Farley not that long ago, and he was realistic about how he's tripling production to meet demand. But now Tesla's out there with a truck. GM's not far behind. Rivian's selling more electric trucks than Ford is at the moment. So who knows how sticky that wait list really is? Look, we own the stock of Ford for the Charitable Trust. I play with an open hand. Obviously, I didn't want to see this happen. I know that the big money for Ford remains in the internal combustion engines, the profit center for the enterprise. That said, I don't know how you can cut prices like Ford just did and then make it up in volume. Prices of different models are well above where they were when Ford introduced these vehicles, and the cost to make each truck is now below where they started out. That's not bad. The bad news is that I don't know if the company can still make its earnings estimates, which are now considered to be aggressive by Wall Street, hence today's stock weakness. Oh, and it sure doesn't help that the price cuts came out on the same weekend as the launch of the Tesla Cybertruck. Even though I believe they're in two different markets, one belonging to the cult of Musk, the other to the small business owner, the optics suboptimal. What's really going on here? I think electric vehicles are losing their excitement factor.
Ad halt. That's some faulty logic if I've ever heard of any. Just because Ford has to slash their prices of their EV pickup truck doesn't mean that the demand for EVs has waned. I posit that the Ford Lightning isn't as compelling as Jim Farley and Ford would like. I mean, let's be honest, they kind of threw that thing together knowing that Tesla Cybertruck is going to be out there. This thing can't even compete with the Rivian. It just has to be more compelling than the internal combustion variant.
And the ease with which they can be filled up. Others are saying that they now can comparison shop, so automakers have to price electric vehicles like regular internal combustion engines. So even if they may be a wait list, why not wait and see how much a new Silverado from GM costs, or take a look at that Rivian, or of course the Cybertruck. Ultimately, unless your costs come down, and that's what's happening with Ford, there'll be no profit anyway. But if an auto company doesn't make electric vehicles, that auto company will eventually be doomed. We all know that. Am I disappointed in the price cuts? Yes. Now, I drove an F-150 Lightning when we were in Dearborn recently, and I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever driven. I never thought of it as a commodity that could be part of a price war. Evers is still selling at a price that's higher than initially planned. Who knows whether this will lead to a cost-cutting spiral? But one thing we do know after today is the bloom may be off the electric vehicle rose, as we always knew would have to happen eventually when there's mass adoption. It just happened a little earlier than I expected.
Like him or love him, the man has an opinion and he has no problem expressing it. I just disagree with this one. The road will be bumpy, Ford. Keep at it.
Let's dive into this and bring in CNBC.com reporter and, by the way, Michigan resident Mike Wayland, as well as auto expert and car coach Lauren Fix. And Mike, listen, and people who don't know me, they don't know what cars I've owned. It may surprise them. You and I have talked on and off the record. This is not bashing EVs. When I'm seeing billions of losses, the unions are worried. They're stocking up. They're filling up car dealerships, particularly in places like Michigan. Are your friends, are your colleagues, are your sources, are they growing worried about this path?
Brian, you mentioned the stock is down 6% today for Ford. And one of the most concerning things is that as early as May, Jim Farley was saying that we're raising the price of F-150, we're raising the price of the Ford Transit E, but we're cutting the price of the Mach-E to be comparable and challenge Tesla. The problem with the cutting of the F-150 Lightning is there is currently little to no competition for the Lightning right now. And they had 200,000 reservations, and they've only sold 25,000 vehicles in the U.S.
Alarm bells should be ringing. No secret the Ford Lightning is having trouble with their production.
Good for consumers, the lower price, but when you've got a company restructuring and that needs the profits of these vehicles, and they've only sold 25,000 out of 200,000 reservations, and they're lowering the price, that's not good.
Yeah, and Lauren, to Mike's point, you got the Rivian, okay, the Rivian R1T pickup truck. That's a different beast. Right. If you've seen them, I've driven them both. It's a lot smaller side by side, but Rivian actually raised prices a couple of years ago. What does it tell you? That a truck with no current real competition is having to cut prices.
Well, I talked to Ford today, and I spoke with one of the internals, and they tell me that they're scaling. In other words, they said, in quote, Ford says they're scaling production to meet customer demand, and they're planning on 150,000 vehicles for this year. And they're claiming that because they're more efficient, that they're going to be able to produce more of them at a lower price. But I spoke with some people in Michigan, and there's a 92-day turn. In other words, it means vehicles are sitting on the lot for at least 92 days. Dealers, not just in Michigan, but also in New York, where I live, have said, listen, we can't find any interest in EVs, not just the Ford trucks. We're not just beating on Ford. It's literally any of the electric vehicles. People are saying, and I've driven them all.
But I would wager that when these EVs go to these dealers, they're not pushing the electric vehicles, and the consumers that are walking the lots, they may inquire about an electric vehicle only to have a salesman dissuade them and go to a hybrid. Go ahead and get your feet wet with this hybrid that I need to push off this lot. And then once the infrastructure gets mapped out, then you can go EV. But this is a good starter car for you. As internal combustion engine sales collapse and the battery electric vehicle sales aren't what they need to be because they're in constant competition with each other, we're going to have a crisis not just within Ford, with GM as well. And like I said before, the U.S. taxpayer can't afford them to stumble.
And they are fun cars. So we're not beating up on EVs. We're just talking about the fact that there's an infrastructure problem. We can't get enough charging stations, and people are upset about it. Now, yes, there is a $7,500 tax credit. And if you're taking almost $10,000 off the price of a Ford truck, and then you add on your state credit, you could be saving almost $20,000 off the price of that
Lauren,
truck.
okay, fair enough. You know what? I'm not going to bash EVs, but I'm going to go after the Ford F-150. And I race a Ford-powered car. I love Ford. I love the company. I know people that live next door to the Fords in places like Grosse Pointe. Here's the bottom line. The Platinum F-150 can cost $90,000. It has an EPA-listed range of 300 miles, which Motor Trend magazine says is more like 250. The lower-end one is $50,000 to $60,000. It goes 200 miles on a charge. If you're towing something, that's 150 miles. What are you going to tow your boat from Detroit to Walloon Lake in Michigan and stop twice? I don't understand what the...
Of course he doesn't understand. But let me tell you what I do understand. People needing the towing capacity, that's real. There is a small segment of people that tow something every single day. I get that. Those are the individuals that probably should stay with their internal combustion engine until they absolutely know. But we just heard, out of 200,000 reservations, Ford was only able to deliver 25,000 of them. These are small numbers. We're not there yet. But to get there, there needs to be economies of scale, innovation that comes with the repetition of building these things over and over and over again and improving them over time, so that when Ford is actually producing millions of these Ford Lightnings, those concerns of those people that are hauling daily will be abated. The charging infrastructure will be robust, not to mention the batteries will be better over time and cheaper, so that the entry prices of these vehicles that he is ranting and raving about will drop dramatically. But it has to start somewhere. You can't just flip a switch and switch from internal combustion engine to battery electric vehicles overnight. Not to mention, they're not going to be moving nearly as fast as Tesla and their Cybertruck will, because Tesla has decades of experience when it comes to building battery electric vehicles.
The industry is trying to do.
So, Brian,
Mike, go ahead, Mike. I got on a little rant there.
I'm going to throw this out there that the truck buyers historically have been the least amount of change. They do not want change in their pickup truck. It's why their loyalty is so high. It's why the companies are very, very particular in what they change in their trucks. And the EVs, they wanted to beat Tesla. They wanted to beat the Cybertruck. GM wanted to beat them. Ford wanted to beat them. So they got these vehicles out there because that is their bread and butter. And they did not want to lose that market share like they did to all the other EVs, like they did to Tesla.
They tried, they failed, and now Cybertruck's on the way to eat their lunch. Just like the Model S, just like the Model X, just like the Model 3, and just like the Model Y.
Very unproven market, and we're going to see how this pans out. But today I talked with GM executives, and I talked to UAW leaders. And GM says we're monitoring it, we're evaluating it, and we'll see what happens. Sometimes they react, sometimes they don't. But the UAW is also very cautious about moving over to EVs right now.
So many factors for GM and Ford to consider, but the most important is making a compelling battery electric vehicle that consumers will have no choice but to be like, I need that one. Ford and GM are kind of coming up short on that. But I guess when you only dedicate half your ass to it, you're going to get a half-ass product.
Thanks, Ivan. So we're talking Tesla today. Shares up about 2.5% as the first Cybertrucks roll off the assembly line, or that I guess that happened over the weekend. How much of a game changer is the Cybertruck for Tesla? I mean, we've certainly been waiting a long time for this.
Well, because it brings more notoriety and more focus on Tesla. And it's been almost 4 years that people have been waiting. They took about 400,000 in orders in the beginning, and now they can start to fill those orders and book the sales. It also increasingly drives people's interest in Tesla because they're getting a lot of press on it and a lot of discussion about it. And it's good for the overall EV industry because the other companies that have trucks, most importantly, Rivian, is the leader right now in EV pickups, exceeding the Ford Lightning F-150. So it's, again, each event becomes an exciting time for the company that launches it, like Tesla, and the industry as we go through this transition from gas-powered cars to electric cars.
Well, Ford and Rivian are both down big today. Ford down almost 3%, Rivian off about 4%. There's news that Ford is actually slashing the prices of its EV pickups. Do you expect the F-150 Lightning to actually take market share away from a Cybertruck or vice versa? Because to me, when you actually look at the trucks, they seem so different that maybe they would attract very different buyers.
Yes, exactly. I agree. They attract different buyers. I mean, the Ford's F-150 is going to attract the more traditional pickup buyer, especially for commercial use. The Cybertruck is more of a consumer truck and more of a unique like off-road or SUV type of vehicle. And so I do think they go after different markets, even though the pickup market has crossed over. There are a lot of people who buy, the luxury or deluxe appointed pickups as just regular vehicles that happen to have a rear bed instead of a trunk or a back cover. But again, it's the sweet spot of the market. Trucks and SUVs are the sweet spot of the automobile market, and Tesla will attract more buyers to Teslas that may not buy the Cybertruck, but may buy another Tesla. And it also increases interest in electric pickups from Ford, especially Rivian, which is the leader right now, and the upcoming electric pickups that are coming from General Motors.
I'll tell you right now, people think that the Cybertruck's not going to be utilized by people in the commercial industry. I beg to differ. If the specs on the Cybertruck are outstanding, now I understand it's not your traditional looking pickup truck, but if it's able to exceed the duties, people aren't going to just not use it. People aren't just going to dismiss it. I'm a big fan of right tool, right job. Now, if the Cybertruck is useless on a work site, of course, you're not going to buy it. You'll ridicule the motherfucker who actually brought it to a work site, and that'll be the end of it. But something tells me that that guy won't be ridiculed once he shows what the Cybertruck can do. In fact, it may inspire others to purchase one.
So do you think pickup trucks in the EV space are also going to be the sweet spot, or do you think that it's going to take a while to see that customer adoption?
No, I think it will as well, especially with these announcements recently from a large number of, or several automobile manufacturers that are going to join Tesla's charging network. That's been kind of the missing link for some of the other manufacturers, that they don't have the high-speed charging network. So the fact that Ford was the first to announce, and then GM, and then subsequently Rivian, Polestar, Volkswagen, they are all, several others have announced they're joining this Tesla charging network, because it is a major boon for Tesla. And also it moves the industry forward, because other than using the Tesla charging network or some of the independent networks, which there are not a lot around, Tesla has the most by far. And everybody asks about EVs, how it works, where you charge them. And over time, the batteries will last longer, they will charge faster, and there will be more places to charge them. And Tesla, I think, helped the industry make a great leap forward in that area.
Bingo bango! Give that man a prize! It's going to take time, but Tesla's doing everything in their power to make that transition as easy as possible.
Tesla gearing up for second quarter earnings tomorrow after the bell. The stock skyrocketing more than 55% in the last 3 months. Here with the top things to watch, we want to bring in Yahoo Finance's Praz Subramanian. Praz, you got your eye on 3 things that we need to be looking for in this report tomorrow. What are they?
Yeah, so 3 things I'm watching here, and analysts, of course, is first off, gross margin trough, the Cybertruck, and also expansion of the factory. So let's start off with the margin trough here. So a lot of analysts believe that this quarter might be the low point in terms of Tesla's margin, which have been the envy of the industry. They hit around 19% automotive gross margin last quarter. So people expected to dip again in Q2, but then possibly rise later in the year. Hopefully, for investors, they'll hear whether Tesla indicates that is the case. Secondly, Cybertruck. So over the weekend, we saw that Tesla tweeted out a picture of that Cybertruck, and that first one produced out of the Giga Austin facility. That's a big deal because, Tesla was sort of 2 years late in bringing that truck on. But right now, it seems like they are actually starting to produce in low quantities. Let's see what they say in the earnings statement and possibly in the call after. Is this just a pre-verification build? Is this truck actually going to be delivered to a customer? We'll see about that. And finally, expansion, right? So Tesla here, they probably have around 2 million, 2.5 million of vehicle capacity right now. They want to hit 20 million by the end of the decade. That's going to need more factories. So Tesla's been talking recently. We've seen them in France and India talking about expansion there, or just doing some sort of operational activity there. And then also, the Journal reported yesterday that Tesla wants to expand Giga Berlin by double, to increase that capacity by double. So we'll hopefully hear more about their long-term plans on how they plan to build up to 20 million vehicles by the end of the decade.
Pras, going back to the Cybertruck, yes, there's a lot of excitement around this delivery event that's supposed to happen this fall, but the initial announcement was made back in 2019, right? Did I get my years right? 2019. If you think about where the EV truck competition is right now, who are they going for? Who's likely to go for the Tesla? How can they compete when other competitors have already come online with their cars?
That's a really good question. I think that the Cybertruck kind of occupies its own space in between the F-150 Lightning, which is a work truck, and something of an adventure truck, mostly a work truck type of everyday kind of vehicle. And then the Rivian, which is purely, in my opinion, hardcore adventure people going out, overlanding, camping, all that stuff that coastal types of people will do. I think that Cybertruck occupies that middle ground where it can actually be used for both work truck type of activities, but also lifestyle and sort of the adventure travel set there. I think that's where the Tesla kind of Cybertruck occupies that space. And we saw Ford sort of reacting here maybe to the news that Tesla was bringing out this Cybertruck in possibly limited fashion this quarter with those deep price cuts of the F-150 Lightning just yesterday. I'm not saying that's because of that, but it could be. It's not coincidental that both of these things happened in the last 2 days.
Yeah, the competition certainly is heating up in the electric pickup space. I'm with Akiko, though. I don't know who the heck is going to be buying this Cybertruck. I'm not sold. I feel like the design is just way too futuristic for me, but we'll see. There's always people out there that are willing to buy these things. All right, Supermanian.
17.5% automotive gross margin is probably the more reasonable thing to expect, but I'm hoping for a significant beat. And that, my dear anchor, is what will drive Tesla stock even higher. Wall Street underestimating Tesla quarter after quarter, year after year. Gross automotive margin will be the first thing everyone looks for on that report. Where that number lands will determine whether the stock bursts up or craters back down. As far as expansion goes, I am equally excited to hear where Tesla might lay roots, but I'm not getting my hopes up as Tesla typically doesn't use this platform to say where they're going to go next. They're going to effectively dodge that question just as much as they dodge the next gen vehicle. And finally, the Cybertruck, I believe it has nothing to do with the price cuts that Ford just had. Although the timing may seem suspect, Jim Farley over there at Ford, they can't afford to be trying to compare their vehicles to that of Tesla. They need to be comparing them to their internal combustion engine variants. They don't have to look far to see where their competition is. In conclusion, analysts can't get enough of the speculation. I guess that's what they're paid for. Why did Ford make the price cuts? What's the Cybertruck's impact? The transition to battery electric vehicles is not going to happen overnight. Only making half-hearted attempts at the battery electric vehicle. Don't be surprised when consumers aren't overwhelmed with the decision to leave their internal combustion engine behind. Ford and GM have a lot of catching up to do. I just hope they're up to the task. And everyone is anxiously awaiting Tesla's Q2 results. Will they or won't they beat the earnings estimates? You'll get my take on Friday. Well, that's all I got for you today. Be easy. Peace.